that ultimately you need to have a life by design. You need to design a life that's so extraordinary that you never have to retire from it, and a life so extraordinary you never have to take a vacation from it.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer, ADP. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in.
All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. We're so glad you're here with us today. I have another amazing guest with me today, Mark Murphy. Mark, welcome to the show.
Jeremy, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
Likewise, 100%, absolutely. Well, Mark is the CEO of Northeast Private Client Group. He is an accomplished author, speaker, and motivator who's revolutionizing the financial planning and wealth management industry. He helps entrepreneurs achieve multi-generational wealth through personalized strategies, leveraging his strategic planning and financial engineering expertise. Mark, I typically like to get these podcast episodes started learning a little bit more about you. Obviously, we know from a high level what your bio reads, but maybe you can help us understand a little bit more about who Mark is, and what you're currently focused on today.
Well, Jeremy, I grew up dumb and broke in Suffern, New York, and all I can tell you is that when I started Northeast Private Client Group 38 or 39 years ago, I thought we'd be successful. Or at least I hoped we would. And, I thought we'd make money, but this was my vehicle to make other people's lives better. And so I've, just focused on, just making other people's lives better. Because that's where I'm always, feel the most excited and most liberated. And so we've just built a business around that.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit more about, because I know you're a big proponent of really kind of challenging, people's mindsets and really, giving, your audience, information that you feel as though is necessary for them to really scale, grow their businesses, become a better version of themselves, et cetera. So let's talk about, how can entrepreneurs specifically, really shift their mindset from the feeling that they need to do everything themselves, okay, versus focusing on finding the right people to help them succeed?
I would say it's pretty clear to me that you meet entrepreneurs, I'm sure you do every day, that they're not going to get outworked. They're very, very smart, and they're grinding away, and they'll grow their business 1x or 2x or 3x. But I think ultimately, if you really want to grow your business 5x or 20x or 100x or 1000x, it's all going to be about collaboration. It's going to be, who are the people that you partner with? Who are the people that can help you grow your income, grow your business, grow your freedom of time, freedom of relationships, freedom of purpose? And, so I think that if you're in the entrepreneurial world and you think it's only about me, that's a pretty narrow path to success. And I think if you can, I think that ultimately, I think it starts with, when I talk to people, it starts with, who is your hero target? Who are the people that you could surround yourself that can help you not grow your business, linearly, but help you grow your business and grow your life geometrically?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I appreciate that. And I know that you have really emphasized that the best investment an entrepreneur can make is really in themselves. Okay. Not even in their businesses, but in themselves. Can you share some personal examples of how this philosophy has impacted your personal life and career?
Yeah, I would say this. One of the things I've said for probably 30 years is, money markets, CDs, IRAs, 401ks, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, blah, blah, blah. Most of our clients will have some or all those assets. Most of our clients will have some or all those assets all their life. But at best, they're inflation adjusted holding tanks. If Bill Gates was on the podcast today with us, he wouldn't say I'm worth $110 billion because of my 401k or my mutual funds. True wealth is created in one of three areas. It's investing in your business or some other operating company. It's investing in real estate. It's financing deals. I'll leave out divorce and inheritance. but that's it. That's how wealth is being created in this country. And so many people, will then take that entrepreneurial mindset, and instead of taking that and investing it themselves or investing in things they control, they'll just put it out to the capital markets and think that that's a wealth creation device, which it never is.
Now, Mark, are those the three primary ways to build wealth that you advocate for, or are there three different ways that you advocate for building wealth when it comes to, you know, uh, really speaking to the mindset of that entrepreneur out there?
Well, I would say this is that here's a question you can ask if you're talking to an entrepreneur or not an entrepreneur. When I think everyone on the planet should know, hey, if I decided to retire today, would I have enough money that my life didn't change? I think that's universal to people that are, $8 an hour people and people that are making, 80 gazillion dollars and everything in between. And I think that's fine. But when you talk to an entrepreneur, when you talk to them about work-life balance, you'll hear most entrepreneurs say, I don't really have work life balance. I just have a life. I have something I love, and then I go to something I love more, and then I go to something I love more than that. So it might be working on their business 1 minute, and then being at their kids' little league game or soccer match, and it might be traveling with their spouse to to an exotic location or anything in between or whatever they think. And so I used to think that I always wanted to be known, Jeremy, as the guy that helped people create multi-generational wealth. And we built our firm based on helping people create multi-generational wealth. But I've come to the conclusion over the last couple of years that that's not enough alone. That ultimately you need to have a life by design, and you need to design a life that's so extraordinary that you never have to retire from it, and a life so extraordinary you never have to take a vacation from it. So if you can create a life by design and have multi-generational wealth, well, that's the beginning of doing something special.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. It's interesting that you brought up that point about, are you really running your business or is your business running you? And so that kind of begs the question then, is it possible for people in general, or maybe, small business owners, entrepreneurs, is it possible for them to excel in every aspect of their lives?
Absolutely. I think absolutely. There's a lot, because remember, it's about a mindset. People think they have to give up their health, or they have to give up love, or they have to give up, a variety of other things to achieve that result. And that's not the case. I think everybody can have it all, but I think the mindset has to change. And remember, I've my journey. You asked me about a personal story, but I can tell you that as I was starting, I said I was kind of kid. I was born dumb and broke in Suffolk, New York. Not actually, maybe the broke part, but you sat down, you start with basically nothing. And I built a business. And as I was continuing to grow and be very successful, I was probably 15 years into my career, and I was making millions of dollars a year. But a light bulb went on one time that if I got sick, if I got hurt, if I had to go to a witness protection program for 2 years, or if I had any break in my business, the business would probably not survive, much less thrive. And so I realized that I didn't have a business. I thought of myself as an entrepreneur, but I really bought myself a job. Now it was a good paying job. And so I've spent the last 20 years working with not only myself, but with clients, helping people get paid not for what they do, but for what they know. And we have a bunch of rules, a couple of rules around that. Number one is your money has to work while you sleep. And the second rule, I think, is that your business has to generate revenue without you doing the do.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point. I'm so glad that you brought that up, and I'd like to unpack that a little bit more, Mark, and specifically around kind of this, topic of leverage, right? You talked about money and people, right? So I think if any, entrepreneur out there is looking to either, launch a business or scale up their business, right? They're using leverage to do so. And I'm not talking about maybe, bank debt, for example, right? Which is another way to leverage, growing and scaling up your business. But you speak specifically, about using other people, to leverage and scale up your business, again, so that you can step back from the business and the business functions with or without you. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, I would say that it starts with a few things. One is we've run our business for about the last 6 years on EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system. So one of the things that's helped me get clearer was that I kept wondering why I was hiring what I thought were very good people, and oftentimes they didn't work out. And when I read the book Traction that Gino Wickman put out, and which is the formation of EOS, it became so very clear and so very simple. Is that I would ask you two questions. One was the GWC question. Do you get it, want it, and have the capability to do the job? And you couldn't be a yes to one or two or even all three. In my world, you have to be a hell yeah to all three. And then the second is I created our core values. And they're not the right core values, they're just my core values. But I think if people are going to be successful in my firm, they're going to have my core values. So as an example might be, if I was interviewing you for a job in our firm, Jeremy, I would say, in our firm, we not only want to create an experience for every client, we want to create a wow experience. If you're not totally jazzed and wake up every day totally jazzed about doing that, you are going to be miserable here. And everybody outside my office is going to hate your guts. So you're going to be miserable. But you think if you got people that get it, want it, and have capability, and they have my core values, they're going to be successful there. And then I think the second thing is you've got to then put people, you've got to pay people competitively, but you don't have to pay them the most, because if they'll come for a dollar, they'll leave for a dollar. But I think what I've found is that if you get people to constantly learn and grow, and you create a culture, because people can leave a job, but it's hard to leave a culture. And so what I've learned as the CEO is that the number one thing is that I always work with our employees to have them learning and growing, and always challenging them to learn what's next, so they're never bored. And the second thing is, it's my job that I think a lot of CEOs who are founders of companies, the one thing they make the mistake of is you can't outsource. You can outsource a lot of things, Jeremy, but as the owner and the CEO and the founder of a business, you can't outsource culture. You have to take responsibility for culture. There's some things that that's life in the Big Ten. You gotta do that. You can't outsource that to somebody else on your team.
Yeah, no, that's so valuable when it comes to culture. That obviously starts, at the top. That starts at the ownership level and then kind of permeates, throughout, the organization, right? For that person that's listening to this podcast today that may either be considering entrepreneurship because they want to scratch that itch, or they're looking to grow up and scale up their small business, what would be maybe one or two, practical type advice type things that you tell that individual?
Entrepreneurship is a mindset. And I think the idea is, even though you may not have a business that you can invest in, the principles are the same. Is that if you're the product, you want to sit with person and figure out, what do I need to do to better myself so that the next opportunity opens to me? Maybe it's education, maybe it's developing a network, maybe it's a training, maybe it's leadership. It could be one of dozens of things. But ultimately, here's the prism that I look at everything through. I look at it through a couple of prisms. The first is, I have virtually zero appetite for expenses, but I have an unlimited appetite for investment, as long as I can get at least a 4 or 5 to 1 return on my money or more. And so I think that would be, that's everything I look through. And I look also make my decisions through the prism of Ikigai, the Japanese term. And basically the 4 questions in Ikigai I always look through. Am I passionate about it, is question 1. Question 2 is, am I good at it? As an example, I'm very passionate about hockey, ice hockey, and the New York Rangers, but I can't skate very well. So I'm very passionate about hockey. I don't think I'd be a very good hockey player. I think the third question is, does the world need that product or service? And then the fourth is, can I get paid well to do it? And I think if the answer is not a yes, but a hell yeah to all 4, then I think I'm knocking on the right door.
Now, Mark, you wrote a book, okay,
I
called
wrote 3 books.
3 books. So I want to talk about one of them in particular, and that is the ultimate investment. So, how, based upon that book, how does being transformational rather than transactional shape long-term success?
I believe, and there's been lots of people that have spoken out about this or various other topics, but I think the number one thing a young person needs is patience and emotional fitness. And the reason why, and discipline, focus, fall in love with the mundane. But I will tell you this, as somebody who's been doing this a reasonably long period of time, um, if you pour into people, not for months, not for weeks, but not for years, but for decades, you will have an army of people that want to come back and help you. And so the idea to me is, I feel so grateful that that method of just doing the right thing every time, showing up for people, making a difference in people's lives, and doing that consistently and without fail, has now given me the great honor of having a lot of people in my life that want to bend over backwards to help me and to make sure myself and my family and my business are okay, because that's the law of reciprocity.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think and I think and I think there's just too many people out there that are takers. I think there are too many people that are matchers, meaning that, I'm going to help you, Jeremy, because you can help me, or I'm not going to help you, Jeremy, because you can't help me. I just think you always lead by making, that by you always lead by doing the right thing and making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I always say it every day. David Meltzer says this. A lot of people say it in different ways. I always say, I want to do three things every day. I want to help a lot of people. I want to make a lot of money, and I want to have a lot of fun. And if I can do all three of those things, it's a good day. And I want to be around people that want to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up some really good points for those that are listening to this, whether this applies to yourself or whether this applies to, how you parent your children, patience, discipline, emotional fitness. And people's reputations are not built in a day, a week, or a month. Sometimes it takes years and even decades, to build that reputation up with people that know, like, and trust you and can really help, you propel your game to the next level. So I'd like to talk next, Mark, about play checks versus paychecks. Okay. My question is can you explain the concept of play checks versus paychecks and how entrepreneurs can use this approach to create multi-generational wealth?
Well, I've trademarked a pyramid to create multi-generational wealth, and at the bottom is protection. Don't tell me you don't have any insurance, or don't tell me your real estate's on in separate LLCs, or don't tell me you haven't done all the necessary planning and protection to put a moat around your castle. The second level to me is cash confidence. Cash confidence is a lot of the wealth that I've created have been created because of cash confidence, because when I had money when somebody else needed money. So it was for opportunities. So I made some of my best investments when I had cash and someone needed cash. But the second thing, I also believe I made a lot of money by having cash confidence, because life is not perfect. So if you have a bad quarter or a bad 6 months or a bad year, are you gonna abandon your plans for growth? You're going to abandon your business. You're going to tell your kids they can't go to private school, or can't go, you can't buy them any holiday gifts or something. Of course you're not. And so cash confidence allowed us to have the patience so that our long-term plans could come to success. So cash confidence is for both, opportunities and emergencies. But then I think if you only have $1 to invest, and only $1, I always want to feed my money machine, which for most people is their business. Sometimes it's their self if they don't have a business. But again, it's through that prism of getting at least as a minimum of 4 or 5 to 1 return on our money. But then the next level is what you've just discussed. We want our clients to set up a series of assets that will give them either a guaranteed or a highly reliable stream of income to replace their income at their jobs, and we'll call those paychecks. We also want them to set up a series of assets where they can spend it, they can save it, they can give it away. But the important thing is it will not be responsible for producing income for their family. So if they have both paychecks and playchecks, that's financial freedom. But there's still one more level. If you can have earned income beyond normal retirement age. So when all your friends in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s are going to early bird specials and worried about living too long, you could be a net saver. And you could live out of the corporate checkbook, which, by the way, is very tax advantaged. And that's a way that generate by the first or the second generation, you can create multi-generational wealth.
Yeah, amen. Now I know that you advocate for maybe a balance between what I'll call Wall Street investing and Main Street investing. So for the average, we'll call it accredited investor. Okay, what does that kind of mix look like for your average client in terms of exposure in Wall Street versus Main Street versus maybe entrepreneurship?
I think everybody is different. There's no like playbook or a cookbook that works for every single person. But what it looks like for most people is um, that when they own a business, they're upside down in the business, meaning everything goes. To be able to build a successful entrepreneurial business, if it was easy, Jeremy, everybody would do it. It's far easier to go work for somebody else. It's far easier to take a job. But the problem is you're always trading time for dollars. That no matter how big your salary is, after you pay the taxes in most of the states in this country, and after you pay your mortgage or your rent, and go on a vacation, buy a car every few years, something like that, and you put a few bucks, maybe in your 401k or your brokerage account, you can at best hope that you work 20, 30, 40, 50 years to maybe have a comfortable retirement, as opposed to entrepreneurs are looking to create multi-generational wealth, but they're also looking for one more thing behind the curtain. They're looking to be in creation fascination mode all the time. An entrepreneur who goes to I live in Palm Beach, Florida, half the winter, and you see a lot of happy people there that are entrepreneurial. You see some people who are retired that are happy, but I find more people there that are miserable because they're just another person with a little bit of money, and they'll say things to you, like Mark, I used to have 8,000 people report to me, and now I go to the dry cleaners every day, and I play golf twice a week or play mahjong or do something. And I think that they're out of their minds bored because they're not in creation and fascination mode. The teamwork stops. All of the they're who they see themselves, it stops. The applause stops. A variety of things happen, and you'll find that I think there's a study that came out that 7 or 8 out of 10 people that sold their business and retired are unhappy and wish they didn't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm going to ask you to get a little bit personal with us, a little bit vulnerable, maybe. And that is, I know that you talk about, kind of this, ingredients to success, which incorporates things like, harmony and health and wealth and purpose and love, being kind of those core ingredients to, entrepreneurial or just life success in general. How do you, Mark, personally balance these elements in your own life?
I think for a long time in my 20s and 30s, I didn't. And I think that ultimately you have to have a conversation with your wealth because you had a lot of limiting mindsets and a lot of conversation we're having with yourself about what you needed to do and what's possible. And it was not reality. It was the story that I told myself to be able to go do that. And I think you can have it all. And I think that, that also allowed me, Jeremy, to one of the things that allowed me to uh, realize what people needed was, what I always want to be the best version of myself. So I don't believe in competition. I believe in differentiation. I'm going to be the best version of me. So if I'm your friend, Jeremy, if something good happens to me, I want something great to happen to you. If I've got $1, I hope you have 1,000. And what that allowed me to do is be a great cheerleader for everybody. But I think if I asked you what my superpower was, I would tell you it's you've got to see people where they are. You can't see them with rose-colored glasses, but if you want to see people where they are. But ultimately, I think my superpower is believing in people so viscerally that they believe in themselves. And that suddenly the impossible becomes possible, the possible becomes probable, and the probable becomes definitive. And so the idea is that it's a belief system that everybody in their life needs somebody to believe in them. Some of the lucky people have a lot of people that believe in them, or a few people that believe in them. But ultimately, sometimes sometimes even if other people believe in you, you have to believe in yourself. And that's the hard part is getting people that were having, say, those limiting conversation I might have been having with myself in my 20s and 30s, to say, hey, that's not really what's going on. This is not, this. You can have it all, but I think um, you have to be, you have to have a plan in place, and you have to surround yourself with the right people, both internally and externally.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit more. And I so appreciate your emphasis on having an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. And I've seen that manifest itself in the corporate world and then entrepreneurship world as well. And it seems to me those that have adopted that abundance mindset genuinely become a magnet, I think, for others that want to surround themselves with you, which ultimately helps you to level up your network. And we talk about the cliche saying that your network is your net worth, right? Well, let's talk about that for a minute. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur about the importance of surrounding themselves with the right people?
I mean, how are you going to have an extraordinary business if you have mediocre people working for you and advising you? And I think the other thing is, I think that ultimately, when I listen to somebody and they tell me, I say, what do you tell me about your business, Jeremy? And I sit and talk to people that own businesses. Well, I listen for very carefully because I think in most businesses, and this is not universal, but it's pretty universal. Um, I think you got to be a marketing company first, a training company second, human resource company third, and then all the things you do. Because in life, you talk about building a network or building a business. We always grew up, Jeremy, and I still believe that it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I think it's even bigger than that. It's who knows what you know. That when somebody tells me I'm growing my business by referrals or introductions or those sorts of things, what it generally says to me is their clients, customers, and patients like them, but they're growing very slowly. And so what you need to do is expand the funnel so more people know what you do and what's unique about your business. And that can come in many forms, but we don't create content, we capture content because content creates relationships creates trust, and trust creates money. And so whether it's and there's lots of different ways to do that. And the thing I also worry about sometimes is that so many people are playing catch up, is they're putting together the cutting edge marketing plan for 2016 or 2020, not 2000. That ultimately what you want to do in every part of your business is you want to develop a business next year that would put this year's business out of business. And I think too many people get disrupted in their business or don't see the growth because they're not willing to constantly and continually improving. They want to stay with that same model thinking, hey, this worked. It's just going to continue to work exactly the way it's worked. And we know that, with disintermediation and the internet and everything else, you've got to be nimble.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, I've really appreciated the value that you've brought our listening audience today, and just appreciate, the fun that you're having, in kind of coaching and mentoring and, helping others, become that better version of themselves. What might be one or two different ways that our listening audience can learn more about what you're up to, connect with you, et cetera?
Well, if they'd like a copy of my most recent book, The Ultimate Investment, or they can have any of the other two best-selling books we wrote, they can. In fact, the easiest way would be to just reach out to northeastprivateclientgroup.com, or probably easier than that, because I think there's a couple of Northeast private companies that do other things than what we do, is you can just reach out to my chief of staff, Maureen Motherway, and her number is 973-422-9140. And she'd be happy to get you a copy of that book, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll definitely put that contact information in our show notes for this episode. Mark, so appreciate you being with us here today.
Jeremy, you're the best. Thank you so much, my friend.
Absolutely. And listening audience, thank you again for jumping into another episode of The Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.